get you motivated.
Some people let me get them, I know they hate it, cause we winning and motivated, glistening and inundated with swagger. I'm trying to keep up my daughter to hear some bullshit. Not from Chicago, so don't talk to me about bullshit. Niggas in the motherfucking game wanna talk about the swag and the ice and the whips they drive. But a nigga like me getting bread, showing love, so the niggas don't respect my grind. It's going down, chasing the crown. About to be one of the illest around, like Jesse Rihanna and Kanye. Nigga, I'm running the town.
Slow it down,
My rope was tight, so you can cut the. If you a dog, I'm Michael V. I take a nigga, girl, I don't play fair. I take him to the bedroom,
and they stay there.
Wanna be mine, I'm gonna climb, give me mine. Running out of time, money on the line, gotta shine. Give it all I got, when I try, won't stop. Fishing in my mind, rockstar on top. Wait a minute, when a nigga really get it, I'ma go off. I gotta prove it to him. I think I'm MJ.
I'm trying to eat, you trying to sleep. If you a dog, then I'm a beast. Go.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, misery bots of all ages. Back again with a video. This one's going to be a bit different. This video is going to be a bit different. On this particular video, I'm actually going to be breaking down the Nintendo Switch 2, the overall trailer or overview trailer, and kind of comparing it to the Steam Deck and what the Steam Deck could already do. Just to give people an idea of it may be possibly being another option for them if they don't want to go with the Nintendo Switch. So let's stop beating around the bush. Let's get into this video. If you like that intro music, definitely check out the Adrian Rockstar SoundCloud in the descriptions below. Here we go. Nuketown, I see you. This is real life. All right. Just a quick little video. I ain't going to be here too long. Just breaking this down. This is the Nintendo Switch 2, for those who don't know. And you can catch this trailer online. I mean, it's the Nintendo Switch 2 overall overview trailer.
The Nintendo Switch 2 system can adapt to suit your situation, however you like to play.
So that's the Nintendo Switch. That's the dock to the Switch. It does have disconnectable Joy-Con, so you can actually, it has controllers that's connected to the actual screen that you can actually remove. Now, the Steam Deck does not have controls that you can remove from the actual Steam Deck, but it does have a dock that connects you to a TV or a monitor.
Mode, use the dock to play on a bigger screen. In tabletop mode, place your system however you like using the stand and share.
Now, you can dock your Steam Deck to a monitor or a television. The Steam Deck does not come with its own stand, but the Steam Deck has been out a while, so the Steam Deck you could actually buy like accessories that will help your Steam Deck stand up if you so choose to do that. Now, Steam Deck doesn't have removable controls, but you can connect basically any controller to your Steam Deck. You can connect a PlayStation controller, you can connect a Xbox controller, you can even connect a Nintendo Switch controller. If you wanted to buy those two controllers or Joy-Cons, you can actually buy that. I don't think the Joy-Cons though. I think actually you can connect the Nintendo Switch Elite controller, if I'm not mistaken. You can also connect like third-party controllers too to the Steam Deck, such as like the Steam controller. So there are various things. You can also connect mouse and keyboard to your Steam Deck as well too. So yeah, the Steam Deck is very versatile.
Share a controller with a friend. In handheld mode, play anywhere you go.
Obviously, you could do that with the Steam Deck.
With these three play modes, you can enjoy playing whenever and wherever you want. All together, anytime, anywhere. Let's take a look at some features of Nintendo Switch 2 and how it's improved from the Nintendo Switch system.
The screen, same thickness.
At 7.9 inches, Switch 2 has a bigger built-in screen. Here's how that compares to.
So that is a bigger screen than the Steam Deck. I believe the Steam Deck has like a 7.4-inch screen, which is not much smaller, but yeah.
Nintendo Switch.
That is bigger.
The system's thickness remains the same.
That's actually not bad, the fact that that's actually pretty thin. Now, the Steam Deck itself is also a relatively thin device, but the Steam Deck also has like curves on the edges to help you better grip it. But yeah, no, that's awesome that they're both actually pretty thin devices, from what I can see.
With approximately.
And by the way, I do own a Steam Deck. I own a base Steam Deck.
Double the pixels compared to Switch, you can enjoy games in greater detail on the 1080p screen.
Now, the Steam Deck has a better pixel count than the regular Nintendo Switch, but it does not have a better pixel count than the Nintendo Switch 2. Nintendo Switch 2 is rocking a 1080p screen, whereas the Steam Deck is rocking a 800 p screen. So it's definitely 200 pixels less. It's definitely a lesser pixel screen, but the Steam Deck does have an OLED version, which will make those 800 pixels pop. So we'll see. I would love to see a comparison between the Nintendo Switch 2 and the Steam Deck OLED screens, because it's going to be very comparable. I won't say that the Steam Deck screen will be better, but it'll be very comparable, and it would actually probably be very difficult to tell which screen is actually better, because one is going to have a better 1080p screen and the other is going to have an OLED screen. So yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's actually, if I'm not mistaken, it's Nintendo's. This is answering Nuketown. Nuketown asks, the Nintendo Switch 2 looks like a larger version of the normal Switch, which it basically is. It is, but it's better. I want to say this is the first time Nintendo has actually ever put a number behind one of their sequels to their consoles. Usually they'll do like Nintendo and then they'll do like Super Nintendo, or they'll do like Nintendo 64 and then GameCube, or Nintendo Wii and then Nintendo Wii U. They never actually did something where it was like, okay, this is the Wii U Part 2, or this is the Super Nintendo 2, or anything like that. This is the first time. And because of that, basically what they did, and this is what most of the other consoles have been doing, like Xbox and PlayStation, is they took what they already had and they made it better. And that's what the Nintendo Switch 2. Nintendo Switch 2 is better than the base Nintendo Switch in basically every way, from better graphics, better screen, bigger, faster FPS, so on and so forth. So
the screen supports up to 120 frames per second, allowing for smoother gameplay in supported titles.
Now that's actually really cool, and I like that feature. I'm curious to see how many games you'll be able to run at 120 frames per second. The Steam Deck doesn't do 120 frames per second, but if you have the OLED version of the Steam Deck, you can do at least 90 frames per second, which is still really good. The base Steam Deck only gives you 60 frames per second, so that's actually really good. The Nintendo Switch 2 actually gives you double the hertz than the base Steam Deck. Now again, the Steam Deck OLED does 90, which is still less than the Nintendo Switch 2, but I'm curious to see how many games you can run at that, because like a lot of these games, unless they're like older games or something like that, a lot of them struggle to do 60 frames per second. So I'm really curious to see how many games are going to be able to do that 120. But that's awesome. That's all. That's definitely one way the Nintendo Switch is better than the Steam Deck.
The LCD screen is more vivid and supports HDR, providing more contrast between light and dark areas of the images.
Now, like I said, if I'm not mistaken, Steam Deck has this as well. So the base Steam Deck has an LCD screen. I believe it has HDR, or at least it has an option to turn on HDR. It may just be only if you dock it on the base Steam Deck. If I'm not mistaken, though, the Steam Deck OLED has not only an OLED screen, which is better than the LCD screen, but I believe that one also actually has HDR built into it. I definitely know that the Steam Deck has HDR. I think, at least with the base mod, I think that's only if you connect it to an HDR TV, though. I don't think the base Steam Deck actually has HDR, but I believe the OLED one does. I don't own an OLED. I do want to get one, but I do have the base Steam Deck.
The all-new Joy-Con 2 controllers connect magnetically. Strong magnets keep the controllers firmly attached to the system. Detach a controller easily by pressing the release button on the
Obviously, Steam Deck doesn't have this. It doesn't have detachable controllers.
back. The SL and SR buttons are bigger for greater comfort and control when playing with a Joy-Con 2 held horizontally. The left and right sticks are now larger.
The Steam Deck has pretty large buttons, I will say that.
Each Joy-Con 2 controller can be used as a mouse, opening up even more ways to play in compatible games.
Now, the Steam Deck, again, you can't disconnect the controllers, but you can attach a mouse and keyboard to your Steam Deck. On top of that, the Steam Deck does have trackpads on it, so you can use the trackpads, or you can use the gyro controllers on the Steam Deck to emulate a lot of the stuff that the Nintendo Switch is doing. And in fact, the Nintendo Switch, if I'm not mistaken, doesn't have any of that. The Nintendo Switch doesn't have like trackpads or gyro, if I'm not mistaken. So that's something that Nintendo has that the Steam Deck doesn't, but the Steam Deck also has some things that the Switch 2 doesn't have. So, which all helps during gameplay. So you can use the trackpad for
Both
gameplay,
the
and you can
left
actually
and
use
right Joy-Con
the gyro controls for gameplay as well.
to support mouse controls, so you can also play certain games using 2 mice, like this. By adjusting the audio balance between the ranges, sounds from the built-in speakers are clearer and more natural in handheld and tabletop modes.
I will say it has a built-in mic for easy voice chat. Steam Deck has that as well. Steam Deck has really loud speakers. The Steam Deck can get pretty loud if you haven't heard it. And I got the base Steam Deck. I imagine that the OLED is just as good, if not better. It also has a built-in mic. I didn't know that at first until I started playing Marvel Rivals, and I didn't realize that because I didn't have the headset on. I was just playing Marvel Rivals, and I had the sound coming out the speakers and stuff like that of the Steam Deck. And I'm talking, or is this noise in my background, and I see my mic on Marvel Rivals popping up to where like everybody can hear it, and like the only way I can like turn it off, well, there's a way to do it through the Steam Deck, but I went into the menus of Marvel Rivals and I switched it to like push to talk. But yeah, it has a built-in mic as well.
It has a built-in microphone, so you can voice chat with friends anytime via game chat. It also uses noise-canceling technology to filter sounds, so your voice will come through clearly.
I believe Steam Deck has that as well.
Even if you don't have a surround sound system, games can be enjoyed with more immersive, three-dimensional sound, as if it were coming from all around you.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Steam Deck also has 3D sound as well. In fact, I'm pretty sure it does, because when I played Hellblade: Senua's Saga, it definitely sounded like that.
Place your Nintendo Switch 2 however you like with a large, sturdy stand. You can move it freely, like this.
Now, I will admit Steam Deck doesn't have that, but there are plenty of accessories that you can get for your Steam Deck that will allow you to do stuff like this, if you want to even do that.
In addition to the USB-C port found on the bottom of the system, there's one on top as well.
That's actually pretty cool. Steam Deck only has the one
It's handy
USB-C.
for connecting a USB-C camera or charging in tabletop mode.
Yeah, so the Steam Deck only has the one USB-C, but if you were to dock your Steam Deck, you can definitely, you can everything you're doing here, you can use that to charge your Steam Deck, you can use it for camera, you can use it for basically anything. But if you were to dock your Steam Deck, it does have a bunch of ports and stuff that will allow you to connect like a camera and stuff like that.
Nintendo Switch 2 comes with 256 gigabytes of internal storage, 8 times that of Nintendo Switch. For storage.
Now, the Steam Deck has, the base one starts off with 256 gig now. It used to be a 64 gig model, but they discontinued that. But then now the base one, which is only $400, which is actually cheaper than Nintendo Switch, is 256. Now you can get other models too, like the Steam Deck OLED one, I think is also 250 gig, but you can also get like a 500 gig one or maybe a 1 terabyte one. I forget.
Storing your game
Obviously,
downloads,
those are going to be more expensive.
save data, and more. Reading and writing data is also faster.
4K support.
Use the Nintendo Switch 2 dock to connect to your TV and enable up to 4K resolution. So
Steam Deck also has that as well. So the Steam Deck's dock, the official one from Valve, has an HDMI out. It has the AC adapter charger, and it also has like for the Ethernet port. But it also has like 3 USB ports, and one I think is a USB 3.0. Sorry, port, if I'm not mistaken. And it also has an option for a display out, so you can connect it to like monitors and stuff like that. So yeah, the dock for the Steam Deck actually has more more. So, and the 3 USB ports help a lot because, like I said, you can connect a camera to it. You can connect other stuff like mouse and keyboard, controller if you don't want to do it through Bluetooth, like just various stuff. So now the Steam Deck can also, whether it's the LCD or the OLED, can also display up to 4K resolution natively via its dock. But the amount of games, to be real, the amount of games you're going to be playing in 4K is really slim to none. Not none, but it's really slim. It would definitely have to be an older game, and it would also have to be like a lot of times it would be like an older indie game and stuff like that. So, like, I think I could run like Hunt Down in 4K and stuff like that. And obviously the menu is on 4K when you dock it, but yeah, you're not likely to get a lot of 4K gaming out of the Steam Deck, just to be real. And I suspect it's going to be the same thing for the Nintendo Switch 2. I doubt you'll get a lot of 4K gaming.
Resolution for compatible games. HDR is also supported in TV mode.
Yep, same thing with the Steam Deck. It's supported in TV mode.
The Nintendo Switch 2 dock has a built-in fan that keeps your system cool. This helps keep performance stable.
Okay, I can the mic being a problem since you know how people are. It could be if they don't realize it's on. There are ways to turn it off though.
On Nintendo Switch 2, you can play Nintendo Switch 2 games as well as compatible Nintendo Switch games. Physical and digital games are supported.
Now, Nintendo Steam Deck doesn't have physical games. It doesn't have like a slot for cartridge or anything like that. But it is very similar in the sense that you can basically play any compatible Steam games, which is a large part of the library, honestly speaking, is verified or playable on Steam Deck. And it seems like it's going to be the same thing here, where you can obviously play your Switch 2 games and compatible Nintendo Switch games. So they're not saying all of the Nintendo Switch games are going to be able to be played on the Switch 2, but a large majority of them can. Now, it's going to be the same thing for the Steam Deck. Large majority of Steam games can and will be able to be played on the Steam Deck, but obviously you're not going to be able to play all of them, unfortunately. But what I will say is the Steam library, way bigger than Nintendo library. Nintendo has a really big library, don't get it twisted, but the Steam Deck's library is massive. And that's basically it for the video. That's it for this video as well. What did you think about the Nintendo Switch 2? Like, a lot of that stuff is pretty appealing. It is pretty cool. It's definitely doing some stuff that's better than the Steam Deck. But I'm curious to know, what are you enticed to go after? Are you enticed to go after the Nintendo Switch 2 because it's the new thing? Or are you starting to lean towards the Steam Deck, since the Steam Deck can already do a large majority of the stuff the Nintendo Switch can do, and it's going to be able to do it at a cheaper price? The Steam Deck is cheaper, even though it is about 2 or 3 years older. So I'm curious to know what you're going to do. Now, obviously, the Nintendo Switch has the Nintendo games like Mario Kart, Donkey Kong, and stuff like that. A lot of which you probably won't be able to play, at least legally, on the Steam Deck. But the Steam Deck, you also got a bunch of like PC games you can play, as well as like PlayStation and Xbox games you can play. So on the Steam Deck, you can play stuff like Spider-Man, God of War, Horizon Forbidden West. You can play stuff like Halo, Gears of War, so on and so forth, Forza, and stuff like that on the Steam Deck. So I'm curious to know, what do you plan on going after this year? Honestly, I don't see much point of getting a Switch or Switch 2. It just allows people to play their game portably. That's all it is. Like, if you're somebody who like travels a lot or who don't want to be tethered to a seat or something like that, you can. It's really good for stuff like that. That's why I use my Steam Deck. I travel a lot to Daytona to spend time with my daughter, so I'll take my Steam Deck with me to Daytona. In fact, that's where it's at right now. I forgot my Steam Deck in Daytona. It's in Daytona at my daughter's house, and it's also good, like, if I'm laying in bed and I don't feel like sitting on the couch or on my computer chair or whatever, I can still like play the game while laying in bed. So it's good for stuff like that. So, but I'm gonna go ahead and end this video. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and let me know in the comments below what you intend to get: Steam Deck or Switch 2.
Motivated.
Some people let me get them, I know they hate it cause we winning and motivated, glistening and inundated with swagger. I'm trying to keep with my daughter till we on some bullshit. Not from Chicago, so don't talk to me about bullshit. Niggas in the motherfucking game wanna talk about the swag and the ice and the whips they drive. But a nigga like me getting bread, showing love, so the niggas don't respect my grind. It's going down, chasing the crown. Box up, be one of the illest around, like Jesse, Rihanna, and Kanye. Nigga, I'm running the town. Slow it down, my vocals tight, so you can cut the. If you a dog, I'm Michael V. I take a nigga, girl, I don't play fair. I take him to the bedroom,
And they stay there.
give me mine, running out of time, money on the line, gotta shine, give it a look out when I drop, won't stop, vision in my mind, rockstar on top.